From the Dallas On Air studios, beautiful Dallas, Texas, this is Fulfillment right here on DallasOnAir.com. And now here's your hosts, the Vegabomber, PJ Dunn, and the film samurai, Carlos Salinas.
All right, welcome, everybody, film fans.
Good morning.
What's
Good morning,
going on,
everybody?
brother? What you know good?
Great. Beautiful day in downtown Dallas.
Yeah, absolutely. It totally is. And you know, if you're joining us for the first time, welcome to the Fulfillment Show. What you have here today is people who love talking about movies. We love talking about movies. We love collecting the DVDs, the Blu-rays, the steel cases, all that stuff. And, well, we just keep talking about the movie well after the movie's over. Isn't that what you see happens?
That's the best part, is discussing, figuring out, like, what was your favorite thing about it, the plot, you know, how he did this, how this scene worked. And, man, I love talking all that stuff.
Absolutely. And then now, of course, since there aren't very many movies that we can actually go see at all in the theaters, most of it's going to be streaming. But what we've done to just make this interesting, boys and girls, cats and kittens, is we decided, well, let's just go back into our memory banks, and if we can come up with some great categories, we can then probably talk about a lot of famous movies or popular movies or enjoyable movies. And in that case, it's going to be how we break it down. And so today, the way we're going to talk about movies is we're going to talk about them from the perspective of great dialogue lines, in fact, quotes. And then as a subset of that, we're going to then tell you and share with you what our favorite movie quotes of all time are. So first of all, Carlos, what's in a quote? What's a really good quote? What would you say that is?
A quote is like that point in the movie where the perfect line comes out. And it's either like a very heavy line, it can just drop, you know, and just make everybody like, ugh. Or it can be absolutely hysterical and just make everybody crack up. And then they don't hear the next line because they're still laughing at that line, you know. So, yeah, it's timing, you know, the delivery of that line. Yeah, line readings are important, man. I mean, because you can say a certain line that's great, but you say it the wrong way or it just comes out just kind of bland, you know. And yeah, I've heard explanations of this, and one particular I won't go into. It's too long of a story, but yeah, it depends on the writing and the delivery.
Absolutely. What about you, K-Zach?
For me, it really is just that perfectly timed delivery. It's that perfectly written line. It's that perfect structure that just pops into your head over and over again in the most either appropriate or inappropriate situations. It's the line that lasts. It's
You're
one of
saying it right after the movie.
As movie fans, it's almost our gospel.
Yeah,
because it's what we refer to in our most uncomfortable or comfortable situations. It's the most relatable. It's the most relatable portion of a film. It's us basically singing along with our favorite tune.
Yeah,
or even when you use a line in real everyday life, you know, you just throw out a line. Like some people get it, some people don't.
Yeah. Right, and when you share that with someone who does get it, you go, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
right?
You know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. If you think about, and this is what's interesting about this as well, and those are all great points. When you think about how many lines of dialogue there are in just a script, and to know that one line can make the whole movie that might have been a pretty bad movie seem at least somewhat good. Right. Because there's a line that becomes so ubiquitous, it fits into so many different contexts, and you just use it. So the movie may not be the greatest movie, it may not have the best acting, the best direction, the best any of those things, but if it has a line, and if that line can be used over and over and over again, they'll make T-shirts out of it, bumper stickers.
Best line comes from the worst movies.
Right. It makes the movie timeless.
Yes. Right. Yes. And so that's why, as film fans and all you film fans watching, that's why it's important to have really good dialogue. But even better, if you can have just the one quote that captures that whole scene, it could be equally as powerful as everything that's caught on video as well, and it's just the words part of it. So we're going to look into that today. We're definitely going to talk about that. So as is our custom, we're going to go ahead and slide into our first segment, and that first segment is Just Seen It. So if you're new here, this is where we talk about what we've recently seen, and we usually start out with the film samurai himself, so let's go there.
All right. I've seen a lot of movies recently, and actually yesterday I saw 4 movies. Lockdown, right? Nothing else to do. So, but one of the movies I saw yesterday, 1971, directed by Lee H. Katzin, Le Mans. This is about the 24-hour race in Le Mans. If you saw the Ford versus Ferrari film, this is based on that race. In this particular race, it's Steve McQueen. He's a American driver who's driving for the Gulf Team Porsche 917 team. And of course, the Ferrari is the ones to beat. These are the guys, the best car, the most good-looking, that red, that Ferrari 512 LM car. So it's almost like documentary style. It opens with this scene of just people waking up on a campground and then walking to the racetrack and lining the racetrack, and there's the grandstand. Everybody's getting ready and prepping the cars at the last second, and then they take off. And of course, 24-hour race works is a driver will drive for a while, 3 hours or so, he'll stop, they'll change drivers. Of course, things can go wrong with the cars. Steve McQueen's character's had a crash the race before, so that's always on his mind. But the footage of the racing is incredible. It's probably one of the best racing pictures I've ever seen. And I would love to see this on a big screen because they shot it in 70 millimeter. And oh my God, it's beautiful widescreen.
Wow.
Yeah, excellent film. The second film that I want to talk about is Capone, directed by Josh Trank. I think the original title of this movie was supposed to be Fonzo because that was kind of like Capone's nickname. Stars Tom Hardy, Linda Cardellini, and Matt Dillon. I found it terrible. I found it hard to watch. It was a miserable experience because the movie is just so unpleasant to look at. The way he shot it, even what you see in the film makes you like, it's vile. I mean, it's disgusting. Capone is in the last days of his life. He's got dementia. He got out of prison. He's living in this huge mansion. Linda Cardellini plays his wife. And he's seeing things. He's not in his right mind. He mumbles that he's buried $10 million, but he forgot where he buried it. So there's all this stuff going on. He's shitting his pants. It's just like Josh Trank is like he's testing the audience, like to see how much they'll take of this, and it's horrible. I had a horrible time watching it. Wow. I rented it from Redbox, and it was the $1.88 or whatever it was, waste of money. I'm glad I didn't see this in the theater. It was just awful. And Josh Trank, Josh Trank from Chronicle, and then he made that Fantastic Four movie, which was terrible itself. Yeah. And then people thought, they're going to give Josh Trank another. Maybe he's not such a bad filmmaker. There was supposedly a lot of studio interference with Fantastic Four, and maybe they didn't let him do his full vision, whatever. Now this is his chance to show what he's really. He's a terrible filmmaker as far as I'm concerned. He's just like, oh my gosh. Anyway, enough said about Capone. Another movie I saw yesterday morning was a film called 7500 or 7500, however you want to say it. It stars Joseph Gordon-Levitt, directed by Patrick Vollrath. This is his first feature film, and I must say it's an impressive debut by this director. He's made a lot of short films before this, but this is one of those films where it's one location, and in this location it's the cockpit of an airline. And this plane is taken off from Germany, and then not soon after, it's attempted to take over by Muslim terrorists. And it's all takes place in one, the cabin of the plane. Mm-hmm. And it's a great performance by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He hasn't made anything since Snowden, I think. He may have made something after that, but that's the last thing I remember him in. And excellent job, man. It's gripping. It's a thriller, and it'll have you on the edge of your seat. And those three films are among others that I saw, but those stand out.
Those are the ones that stand out.
The ones that stood out for being so bad, and the ones that stood out for being really good.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, skip Capone. Watch 7500. It's on Prime anyway, so you can watch that for free.
So skip Capone, everyone, but 7500 is the deal. How about you, K-Zach?
All right, so I got a couple of recommendations for you, or non-recommendations. I don't know. All right, so my first one is, of course, the season finale of The Last Drive-In on Shudder. This is Joe Bob Briggs hosted double features. They did run them every Friday night. Like I said, this was the season finale, but this is them kind of closing out. They closed out with 2 phenomenal films, Hellraiser 2. Where we got to get an interview with Doug Bradley and the female lead, whose name escapes me at the moment. Got to get just some great interviews and segments and how they built the character of Pinhead, and just all that went into this film. And I mean, just the Hellraiser universe is just so layered and crazy, but it's for what it is, one of the last practical effect films of the 80s, it's interesting. It's kind of fun. The second feature was, of course, the Roddy Piper classic Hell Comes to Frogtown. And if I had to describe the film, it's more insane than you could possibly imagine. Roddy Piper in the apocalypse is one of the last surviving fertile guys.
Is Sandal Bergman in this?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Sandal Bergman, who you know from Conan, which we'll get into in a little bit. Crazy practical effects in this one too, because you have full frog masks. I mean, just basically these makeup artists just got better and better, but their budget ran out. So you just see the quality go way down. The film is ridiculous, but it's fun. And it's just one of those drive-in classics where you have to appreciate it. And of course, watching it with Joe Bob Briggs interjecting interesting facts about this film that no one would ever see, no one in their right mind would ever see, but it's defending these terrible films. That's just the joy to watch. My second recommendation is it's been running on Sci-Fi, but I think they're running a season 2 on HBO Max, and that is the Harley Quinn series from DC Universe. It's one of those shows that basically just tries so hard to have smart dialogue, and occasionally it's funny and it lands, and there's in jokes and things like that. Okay. It just tries so hard to be so smart. The voiceover cast is tremendous. Kaylee Cuoco as Harley Quinn, Lake Bell as Poison Ivy. You have Ron Funches as King Shark. You have Jason Alexander as Cy Boardman. If you're familiar at all with the Harley Quinn comics, it goes there. And like I said, it's way over the top. It's not a cartoon for kids. It's really super adult, but it's funny. Okay, it's funny, and since my wife digs on Harley Quinn, it's fun to watch with her because she knows the universe too.
Wow.
My last one that I didn't put this on the outline, but I got to watch it last night because they just put it on Netflix, and that is The Disaster Artist.
Disaster Artist.
The making of The Room with Tommy Wiseau, James Franco, and Seth Rogen, who, if you know the story of the movie, and I won't get too much into it, basically it's the making of possibly one of the worst films ever.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Oh, exactly.
Quotable line. Right,
but what it is, it's really a movie about never-ending belief in yourself and just making things happen no matter how terrible it is. You see the whole thing through, and just watching James Franco embody Tommy Wiseau, who ever met him, because he'll do the in-person showings of the rooms and things like that. Just and watching him embrace what he thinks is great acting and movie making, and it's just god awful. And it's cringeworthy, but it's we're this is made in like 2001, and almost 20 years later, we're still watching this film. It's a film it's a terrible film that cost $6 million to make, and it's finally making its money back with all of its showings. But I mean, James Franco really did deserve, all the nominations and the best adapted screenplay Oscar winner. It's just an amazing story of how something terrible gets made. But it really is a story about never-ending belief in yourself, and it's really, really worth watching.
Oh, so it's like behind the scenes of The Last Jedi. Yes. Oh, okay, yeah. Got it.
But the room, I don't know if The Room was more watchable or not.
Yeah, it depends.
It depends on who you ask.
Well, the only thing I was able to catch at this time because I've been doing a lot of work lately, and I've been dealing with computer issues. But the thing I was able to watch was the thing I most wanted to watch, which was the premiere of season 3 of Yellowstone. So, folks, if you're not watching this, you got to watch this now. The simple way to describe it is simply imagine The Godfather, but out on a ranch. And so the key characters is, you've got Kevin Costner, but really it's not him that really leads this whole cast. It's all these other ancillary characters who work for him. So anyway, season 3 just started, just looked at episode 1. And so, if you've been watching this season at all, you know that it's got a lot of drama in it. You know that it's got one of the best villains of all time. That's actually his daughter.
Too, yeah.
What's her name? Kelly Riley?
Kelly
again?
Riley.
Yeah, Kelly Riley. And she's just incredible as a person you love to hate, right? So forget you, Ice Cube. You really love to hate this one person more than they love to hate you, okay? So if I throw back to my hip-hop culture on that one. Yeah, but yes, she's definitely hated. So in this episode, I won't get into all of it. I'll just let you know that every first episode of a new season, they're having to let you know where the threats are going to come from up front, and they give you just enough of a threat, and then they pull back on it. And so there's an increasingly intense scene, just these guys doing what they normally do, riding their horses, trying to take care of this massive land that they own there in Wyoming and all of this, or Montana. And the next thing you know, there are some well-dressed people on their land who are definitely already deciding where they're going to put things when they buy this out. And so now what you got is somebody who's 5 or 6 times richer than Kevin Costner himself with the land that he owns. And now we're about to see the battle start to happen over eminent domain and a few other things there. And so there's just so many things about this show. At first you would think, how would this be a good show? But because who cares about a ranch and who lives on a ranch? But actually, Taylor Sheridan.
It's some good character building and writing and arcs and stuff. And yeah, it's great. I love it. I'm gonna wait till all the episodes come out and binge watch it.
Yeah.
Because I find watching a series like that best to just one after another after another. It's more. I get into it more like that versus watching one a week and then trying to remember, what happened last week? Because I've got short-term memory loss now, and I'll completely forget what the last episode was about.
I'm having problems matching my socks, so of course, I believe that.
It must be TV magic because they found a way to make Wyoming interesting.
Yeah, right.
That's good writing.
Well, it's totally good writing, and what's great about it is, and I never think about this, but whenever you watch this show, and Carlos, you've seen the first 2 seasons, the backdrop, the mountains, the cinematic views where they back up and just show you, while this is going on here at the ranch, while this ugliness is going on here at the ranch, when they shoot those wide scenes, you go, look at how this ugliness is happening with all this beauty all around it.
It's like a character in itself, right?
Absolutely. And so the scenic value, if you're somebody who loves travel, you're going to love a lot of these scenes because a lot of these scenes are taking place outside, and the way you get to see these hillsides and these mountains.
Where do they shoot the show?
And that's what I for some reason I know, and I may have it reversed, but it might be Montana, even though it's based in Wyoming, but it could be the other way around on that. But I believe it might be Montana is where they shoot it.
I was just curious if they were shooting in Canada just to take advantage of the...
Because it looks like Canada, right?
Yeah, it does in some scenes. You can definitely make out some pieces, but I think it is.
Principal photography for the series began in 2017 the Chief Joseph Ranch in Darby, Montana.
There you go.
Also took place in Park City, Utah. No, yes. Because I'm from that part of the world.
Oh, okay.
You know exactly if you've seen it in person, it's beautiful to look at, but it is hell to be in. It is frighteningly cold and amazingly just bleak.
Yeah. I hear that a lot of people from California, when they want to slow down and get out of the rat race of California, they go to Montana. There's certain spots out there that are scenic that you just can unplug from everything.
Because it's too expensive to live in Jackson Hole anymore.
Yeah, right? So that's what we've seen. So now, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to our next segment, which is part A of the topic for this week, which is we're going to get into the most quotable movies. And so with that, we'll start with the film Samurai.
Okay.
Let's do this, brother.
All right. These are all my personal favorites. They may not be everybody's, most quotable films, but these are the films that I watch and always remember their lines. But the first one I picked was the 1986 John Landis film, Three Amigos. And stars Chevy Chase, Steve Martin Short. It's a throwback to those old Western serials where they shot it on a dime budget, and the plot is hilarious. There's just so many funny moments in this movie. I just love it. It's written by Steve Martin and Lorne Michaels, and I think Randy Newman wrote the song that they sing at the campfire, that Martin Short sings. It's so hilarious. All those little animals like moving their heads, dancing. But it's just one joke after another. A lot of visual jokes, but a lot of just great, funny lines. One of my all-time favorites, and I roll on the floor laughing every time I hear, is when one of the Mexican women there in the town asked Dusty Bottoms, Chevy Chase characters, says, "Would you like to kiss me on the veranda?" It's a little romantic scene.
Yeah.
And Dusty goes, "The lips will be fine." And it's like you take a second to think about it, and then you say, "Oh, okay, I get it." But he's just so dumb, And that's even another line later. She goes, he says, "Which one do you like?" "I like the one that's not so smart." And then the other one goes, "Which one is that?" It's like they're all dumb. It's so great. I love that movie. Anyway,
the plethora sequence.
Yeah. What is a plethora?
You say I had a plethora of gifts. Do you know what a plethora is?
And even the like the name of the villain, El Guapo. El Guapo in Spanish means the handsome one. It's kind of the ugliest, most hideous looking Mexican guy you ever saw.
We all held an El Guapo in our lives.
Yeah, that whole thing.
And unfortunately, the El Guapo we're facing is the real El Guapo.
Rape the horses.
Rape the horses and right off on the women.
And let's see, my second one was Pulp Fiction, of course. Tarantino is a great writer of dialogue, and then he gets the right actors to deliver the lines in the way he wants them to hear them. And it's so good. Samuel L. Jackson in this film is like the standout here. But every other character, I mean, Harvey Keitel,
Bruce
got
Willis,
some great
John Travolta.
Yes.
Harvey Keitel.
But that, just short throwaway lines like, "English, motherfucker, do you speak it?" See, I can't even say that line like Samuel Jackson. Samuel Jackson, the way he says it, is like, yes. It's just like music to your ears, like you're in a symphony.
Right, yeah. I mean, Ezekiel 25:17, the cadence on that sequence alone is just stand out. I mean, all I have to do is say those words, and you automatically hear it in your mind's dialogue. "With great vengeance and furious anger, those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers." Every single moment of that sequence, it's just chilling right before he kills someone. And the fact that it comes up again in the dialogue is just so smart because it's this weird redemptive arc.
So it's,
make sure I have my Royale with cheese, please.
So it's that Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avery also help with the script. I think I read Roger Avery and Quentin came up with those stories, like the one that who tells that story? I guess it's the stories within the film. Anyway, Pulp Fiction. Anyway, that's my second pick.
Did they win a screenplay on that?
God, I think it may have. I'd have to look that up.
I'll look that up while
it was nominated for sure.
Oh yeah,
I know. Yeah, I know it was nominated. I just couldn't remember if they won it or not.
Yeah,
so let me look that up real quick.
So many great lines in that movie. And then my third was Apocalypse Now. Apocalypse Now, of course, is my all-time favorite film.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know if I ever told you that, but yeah, I watched this back in 1979 at the Highland Park Theater, and that's when they put in THX sound for the first time.
Yeah.
So I was in an auditorium, had no credits, so they hand you this little program, that had all the credits in it, and that's the first film I ever saw where I thought, man, movies can be more than just movies.
Yeah.
They can be art. They can have something to say. It was just incredible watching this film. But yeah, written by John Milius, one of the great script writers of Hollywood, Coppola himself, and then a lot of the narration that was done by Martin Sheen was from the book Dispatches, I believe, by Michael Hare. And then all of it was based on the Joseph Conrad Heart of Darkness, going up the river to find this lost soul, but yeah, so many incredible lines. But one that stuck out with me was part of the narration where Martin Sheen's talking. He says, "We train young men to drop fire on people, but their commanders won't allow them to write fuck on their airplanes because it's obscene." And then you got lines from like Robert Duvall, I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Charlie don't surf.
Yeah, Charlie don't surf. I mean, so many lines in that movie. So yeah, I used to know that movie by heart. I'd watched it so many times, and once a year I pull it out and watch it.
Yeah,
just that. The narration is some of my favorite writing.
The horror.
The
horror. and just visually, man, and it's a timeless film too, with just that electronic score that it has. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, there's an episode of Animaniacs where they do a takeoff on Apocalypse Now, but instead they use Jerry Lewis's clown movie as the basis.
Oh my goodness!
So watching them, watching them deliver, Coppola's lines in Animaniacs dialogue with Jerry Lewis as the character, as the director who won't finish the film. It's just it just tells you how much that movie stands out in the pop culture pantheon.
Embedded in the culture, yeah. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Sweet. How about you, Zach?
All right. Okay. So the movies that I chose. Let me bring up my stuff here. Where are you? Okay. All right. So the first one that I went with, I'm going to say, is National Lampoon's Animal House, and the reason why I bring it up is not just because of the dialogue itself, because it is it's classically written dialogue, but because it's kind of the start of comedy writing in the 80s, because this is Doug Kenny's first film. Doug Kenny from National Lampoon. National Lampoon is kind of the springboard starting point for a lot of what comedy was in the 80s, because everyone who was in National Lampoon goes on to do Saturday Night Live. You've also got Caddyshack. You also
Fletch.
Right. You've got Ghostbusters, and of course, just all these coming from when Doug Kenny finally goes to Hollywood. And with National Lampoon's Animal House, it's just classic. I mean, John Belushi is quotable in his eyebrows alone. But I mean, scenes like food fight. You can't do that to our pledges. No, only we can do that to our pledges. Just stand delivery from Tim Matheson, Verna Bloom, who. God, the guy who plays Dean Wormer, I can't remember his name. But someone has to put their foot down, and that foot is me. And fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, young man. Just John Verne, that's it.
Yes.
John Verne just delivering these hilarious lines, deadpan.
Yes.
It's just amazing. And I mean, you have just so many people who not only just do this movie for a laugh, like Donald Sutherland delivering all this dialogue, but you have an incredibly young cast who's delivering just all this whip smart crack dialogue, which is just phenomenally funny and delivered so perfectly. Again, it's a John Landis film, so you're seeing him kind of start off his directorial thing, and it's just a beautiful comedy to watch. And of course, it is the springboard for what I roll into in my next one, which is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And the reason why I bring up Bueller's Day Off is not only Bueller. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't blink, somebody can miss it. But it's also one of John Hughes' finest albums. And of course, you can't forget John Hughes in the pantheon of well-written films. I mean, you have stuff like 16 Candles, Weird Science, The Breakfast Club, which is infinitely quotable, which is the one that I almost went with.
Yep.
But I wanted to go with Ferris Bueller's Day Off just because it is, again, these blink and you'll miss it, but it's just smart dialogue. And every bit of it, it's the John Hughes film, the John Hughes dialogue is one of the start of the smart teenager dialogues. You have young actors who get to deliver really smart stuff because you get to see people like Anthony Michael Hall, Robert Downey Jr.,
Judd Nelson.
Yeah, exactly. Ali Sheedy, Molly Ringwald, all these great actors delivering what is good dialogue from the mind of a really phenomenal director and writer. Because I mean, you have John Hughes, who again is part of the National Lampoon School, who again, starts with National Lampoon's Vacation, which is based off a story they wrote for National Lampoon and erupted into a whole just great movie. And then, of course, you get into all just these fantastic movies, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, just a whole start of great movie dialogue from one genre. It really is kind of what defines the 80s. The last film that I chose is almost an offshoot of that because it's the Rob Reiner classic, The Princess Bride, based on William Goldman's phenomenal book. As you wish. Anybody want a peanut?
Inconceivable.
Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. For anyone who it is almost the perfect movie.
Yes,
because it is it's an adventure. It's a comedy. It's a love story.
William Goldman wrote the book, and William Goldman is one of the great Hollywood writers. He wrote Marathon Man. Just like you can look at his IMDb sometimes, and you'll see some of the best films of the 70s, 80s, 90s. That guy had an incredible career.
Yeah, and if you read Carrie Elway's memoir on the making of The Princess Bride, William Goldman was really hesitant because he was afraid no one would be able to create the dialogue.
How could you adapt it, right?
Right. And he got Rob Reiner on board, and Rob really delivered on this film. And Rob himself, who has a great directorial stand-in, because you've got
his father was Carl Reiner,
right? You've got This Is Spinal Tap. You've got When Harry Met Sally. You've got Throw Mama from the Train. Just basically, Rob Reiner is another one of those actors turned directors who knew how to deliver dialogue on screen, get you involved in the plot, and get these really smart writing credits out to people who really enjoy them. And The Princess Bride really is just a perfectly written, well-timed movie, driven by a great cast who knows how to handle experienced dialogue. It's still fun. It's still fun, and it still stands up.
Yes. And you notice how these movies back then and the stuff that you guys are talking about, notice how we're going back a bit. And notice what's beautiful about this is you're not having to worry about political messages sliding in or whatever the trendy thing is of the day showing up in all the dialogue and people trying to force or put agendas down your throat instead of just telling a good story. These movies stand on their own, by their own merit, by the strength of the screenplay, by the casting, by the actual execution of the actors to get the concept of what they're trying to do in the movie and then deliver the lines perfectly. And that's why I would say that age of cinema is something that I think the kids coming out now, we need to point them back to that so they can see, look, this is good storytelling. Good storytelling doesn't start from taking a headline from a social media site and then try to turn it into a movie, which is what you're seeing now and all this stuff being forced in. So, I think that's great. I also have 3. And again, knowing what my friends are going to pick, I also try to make sure I can layer some things because we don't want to copy the same things. We like a lot of the same things. So I'm going to start with, there's this comedy that had come out in 1999. It's about 92 minutes long. And it's called Friday. If you want to talk about a movie that is still often quoted and was quoted as much as any of Dave Chappelle's stuff was, but this is pre-Dave Chappelle, this one movie had it. And all we're talking about is 2 guys that are sitting on a porch and one guy's trying to get the other guy to smoke weed with him. And all of that ties into this whole thing that's going on in the neighborhood. So you talk about quote after quote after quote, and people still say it now. Like, nowadays people, when they don't like something, they go, bye Felicia, straight from the movie. You can almost use it in any context, right? And then whenever the boys are outside and they see the fine neighbor across the street, hi, Miss. Say to her, right? You got
hey, Miss Pog.
Hey, Miss Pog. Hey. Right? And then you have, if you talk about then the crackhead, he's ill. And he walks up on Smokey when he's locked outside of his house, but he has to take a dump, so he takes a dump. And he says, Smokey, he goes, hey, what you doing back there, Smokey? What you doing? He goes, go on. He says, just go on. He goes, don't tell nobody. He goes, all right, I ain't gonna tell nobody. Hey, everybody, Smokey's taking a dump outside. It's like, right, and you can go on.
Right, my neck, my back, my neck and my back.
Debo, that's my bike, punk. He gonna cry in the car. I mean, it's just
Hey, you just got knocked out.
it's like, Craig, now see, your father, he got game. Don't nobody go in the bathroom for another 30, 45 minutes.
Oh, John Witherspoon.
You call that game?
John Witherspoon. I gotta believe half of his dialogue was improvised.
Oh
man.
my gosh, it had to have been. And then here's Chris Tucker, who's blown up out of nowhere. Like he's separating himself from Chris Rock because he's another black comedian with the name Chris. And here he comes, and his lines are perfect. So the line where he says, "Man, y'all never got two things that match. Y'all either have peanut butter, no jelly. Y'all got cereal, no milk. Ham, no burger."
Right. Ice Cube and DJ Pooh, when they wrote this film, really kind of delivered this spectacular little indie film. Who I don't think even the studio thought it was going to be as
Oh
huge as
God,
it
it
was.
made so much money too.
Yes,
Holy
it did.
shit.
And the crazy thing about this too is this is also Ice Cube. At a moment, this is a famous rapper from a famous rap group who started out on his solo career, and now he's making a transition into cinema. And this is like his second movie because he was in Anaconda. He had a scene in Anaconda.
Well, I
He was in
mean,
that.
Boys in the Hood was his first film, right?
I think he was in Anaconda first, and then Boys in the Hood, and then Friday, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's somewhere in there. But I think you're right. But the idea here is that here's a guy who was a rapper, and a pretty good rapper, and he wrote most of the lyrics for NWA anyways, right? And that's why he split off, because he wasn't getting the right royalties for that. And you see a guy transition from a successful rap career into doing cinema, and then he spun off a bunch of movies, Are We There Yet? And all that stuff, that have made a ton of money. And then we get, which is going to tie back into this now, F. Gary Gray, who's the director of this, ends up directing him again in a movie called Straight Outta Compton, where it's now his son that he's directing, O'Shea Jackson Jr. So there's a nice little timeline of just how out of nowhere this rapper, O'Shea, Jr. comes out, and he just says, "Oh, I can do acting, I can write lyrics, I can write an album that goes gold platinum, and I can sell movies that are 3 billion or 3 million or more that are children's movies, which you wouldn't expect from a gangster rapper to do children's films or family films."
Right. And I mean, this is also right on the cusp as we're getting a whole bunch of these LA crime dramas, because you're getting stuff like Colors, Boys in the Hood, all that. And I mean, out of nowhere drops this really fantastically written comedy.
Yes.
Taking stuff take scenes that are actually funny. Some are out of real life. How are you going to get fired on your day off?
Yeah. How are you going to get fired on your day off? He goes, "I don't know." He says, look at it just like that. And so then another film. So that movie's really quotable. And if that isn't enough, back in 1975, an all-star comedy troupe starring John Cleese is Monty Python's The Holy Grail. And there were several, but this is the one, Monty Python's The Holy Grail, that just totally took absurdity to the next level. And then, you wrapped in a couple of history, you write in a couple of stories, and it just turns into a laugh-a-minute movie that you get with Monty Python's The Holy Grail. So you could take any one of them, like Brave Sir Knight Sir Robin, and they're singing the song of Brave Sir Knight Sir Robin, he bravely ran away. No, I didn't. He bravely went. When I raised its ugly head, then he turned and ran instead. No, I did not. And he's just arguing back and forth about the song. I mean, there's so many things. The whole scene about the rabbit, that everybody just loves, where the guy's saying, "You've got this awesome, vicious creature with a mile-long, wide, vicious streak." What, the rabbit? Come on, man, let's go. All right, then, let's go. And all of a sudden, you see this little one thing going. You say, "Run away!" And they're all running back, and they're doing the whole coconut thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
You go 2 hours of coconut and you're banging them together.
Help, he's regressing me. He's regressing me.
Help, I'm being repressed. Come see the lights inherent in the system.
Bring out your dead.
When he's trying to get into the castle and the guy's up there just insulting him.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I'll wave my private parts in your general direction. Your mother was a hamster and your father smelled of elderberries. We're, as nerds, we can smell our own on this.
Yes,
because
we can. Yes,
we
we can.
because any nerd worth their salt quotes Monty Python. And have been since 1975.
Yes.
So we've been, going through all this, but I mean, it's again one of those timeless films who as fans of comedy or students of comedy, it's one that's a must-see because it's these great sketch writers who've come together to write all these little short anecdotes into one solidly fun film.
Yes, and you want to talk about comedic timing. So when you're looking at Eric Idle and John Cleese and Terry Gilliam and Michael Palin, the way they play off of each other is perfect because you would think, well, if something is absurd as this, how do you get the timing of something that's meant to be absurd in the first place? Yeah. But their timing is perfect.
And then you got to have that perfect straight man, Graham Chapman. Oh my God, just being this on this great quest.
And the direction of Terry Jones. Yes. You've got the music of Eric Idle. You've got just all these brilliant minds coming together to make this really great sketch film.
Yeah,
and like I said, because it's not one solid dialogue. It's not one solid story. It's little bits and pieces wrapped around the Arthurian legend, and it's really great historical comedy.
Yeah, and it's amazing in that talk about now when we're sheltering in place and we're in a quarantine. You definitely, if your spirits are way, way, way down, I challenge you to put this on. And I challenge you not to smile, crack, smirk, anything while watching.
Mumble the lines along with the movie. Right?
Yeah, I just promise you do that. Especially the moment that they grab those coconuts and they start acting like they're riding. I mean, you just.
And that was just because of the low budget. They couldn't afford real horses. So they just let's just make this coconuts.
And I mean, now if you go to the Alamo Draft House and they do their quote-alongs, they'll have the coconuts for you right in the seats, and you can recite the lines along with everyone who's watching this film with you. And it really is one of those communal experiences because everyone knows this film.
That's very, very true. And I would say then, while those are super, super quotable, I went a little different on this one. And I went with, in 1980, a little movie called The Empire Strikes Back. So it was the second in the installment at that time. And actually deeper and completely different than the first one in the sense that the good guys don't win at the end of this one. And so as a kid, you're watching this. And here's what's great about this. Yoda, the new character that's introduced in this one, has all the great lines practically, and then Han Solo has to get a couple in there too as well. But for me, The Empire Strikes Back, as a younger kid trying to put the pieces of the world together, and for the people who say this is just a children's movie, when Yoda is training Luke Skywalker, that's not a children's movie type thing. That resonates with anybody. So when Mark Hamill's character Luke Skywalker is being a little brat because things aren't going his way, which happens to all of us. When things don't go our way, we do start to get into a pity party. You just love that Yoda, this small, wise little figure, just tells him, when he says, "I'll try," he sounds all defeated in it. He says, "No, do or do not. There is no try." You love the fact that when he says, "This is impossible," you want the impossible. And Luke is just emoting. And he says that is why you fail. And so you get this sense of, wow, this is deeper than just pew, 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 pew. This guy is actually teaching us something about how life goes. Because when life doesn't go the way you want, and maybe you're entitled, you have to look at this. And then you get Han Solo who comes in here and takes a line that wasn't even in the film originally. But he put it in there when he's about to get, put into that carbonite. And Princess Leia says to him, "I love you." And he goes, I know. And it was just it was perfectly delivered, very simple. And he was willing to go off script to say that. And that was better than the line that they would have scripted for him to say. So you have all of that. And then, of course, in the movie, his dad and him taking off the mask and him saying he's feeling sorry that he wasn't able, to help his dad. Or no, I'm sorry, that's Return of the Jedi. I'm getting kind of ahead of myself. So let me stop that there. But for me here, Yoda, the impact, the lines that he's saying, and I see it in corporate boardrooms now, right? So a space movie that's for kids, I see the quote of "do or do not, there is no try" in corporate boardrooms, which have nothing to do with space or fantasy. These are people trying to make hardcore money and teach other people how to do it in leadership.
I wonder how much of the dialogue was written by Leigh Brackett, who's a legendary screenwriter. She wrote some The Big Sleep and Rio Bravo and those old movies. They brought her in to, I guess, maybe polish the script.
Yeah.
But, of course, most of it was Lawrence Kasdan, of course. But
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess she had a lot of input into it. I wonder how many of those classic lines. Maybe it was just the more romanticized stuff that she wrote.
Yeah, I mean, there's the story of I can't remember if it was Harrison or Carey who, when you're reading the original Star Wars movie, George, you can write the dialogue, but you don't have to say it. Kasdan made the dialogue deliverable and relatable. Because you watch in Star Wars, you've got young actors who are stumbling over this dialogue, and this one is more accessible. And you're getting Yoda, you're getting Luke, you're getting great character development in the writing.
That's exactly right. So let's look now, ladies and gentlemen. Let's look at, we've told you some of the most quotable movies out there as far as we can list them. But let's now talk about the quotes themselves. So now, our favorite movie quotes. Now, quotes can be philosophical, quotes can just be humorous, or quotes could be just the most apropos thing you could say given the scene that it's in. So we'll start with the film samurai on some of his favorite movie quotes.
All right. I'll go with, let's go with this one was from 1982, Conan the Barbarian. Written by...
Last in life. Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentation of your women.
John Milius, yeah, one of the great. Of course, he wrote Apocalypse Now. We talked about that earlier, but yeah, this guy was just, based on Robert E. Howard. So I don't know how much, if they used any from the books of Robert E. Howard, but also Oliver Stone was a screenwriter on that film as well. But yeah, that I just love that dialogue. This barbarian, they're in a campfire and like, what is best in life? This is just like a man's movie, just like crush your enemies. They're driven before you. I love it.
Yeah. The trashy, Dino De Laurentiis sword and sorcery epic.
Yes. The second one I picked is Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, written by George Lucas.
So this is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause.
That was Padme Amidala to her adopted father, Bail Organa. Of course, this is at the Senate where Palpatine takes power. And that line is so good to me because it resonates today.
Oh my gosh.
Every time there's a new authority or person that comes into power, you hear it. It's in my mind at least every time something like, especially the last election. It's like, to me, it's like, this is how democracy dies with this. Anyway, okay, and then my third one, Chinatown, 1974, written by Robert Towne.
Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
You get tough.
That was Walsh, one of the detectives, who was always giving Jake Gittes. Jake Gittes, of course, Jack Nicholson's character, played by, Jack Nicholson played this private detective, and this is at the very end of the movie, and spoiler, if you haven't seen this movie by now, a major character gets killed, and Jack, Gittes wants to do something about it, but the guy holds him back. And it's a real kind of bleak ending, and it kind of is like that end of the era type thing, post-Vietnam. This is the way things are. You just have to deal with it, man. It's just kind of like, it's like a gut punch. And it's like just a resonant
the whole
piece of
movie
dialogue.
is a gut punch, man. Especially that ending.
The reveal and everything with the, Faye Dunaway's character, her daughter, or is it her sister? John Huston, this villain, man. He's just like, you just hate this guy. But yeah, those three are just great pieces of written dialogue and the way they are delivered.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. KZek, how about you, brother?
All right, let's go with number one here. I don't think it really needs a whole lot of setup.
Can you fly this plane and land it?
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley. Can you fly this?
The reason why it works is not only just this turnaround real quick line, but it's also delivered deadpan by Leslie Nielsen. When you have a serious actor who takes really good funny dialogue and delivers it so perfectly, that's what makes it stand up. And I mean so many great lines out of Airplane, because again, it's one of those infinitely quotable films, but it's just joke after joke after joke delivered by serious actors.
Yeah.
It's again kind of what makes timeless comedy. The Zucker brothers really kind of deliver just the ability to do joke after joke. It never stops. It's again one of those films where if you're down, watch this film.
Yes.
Because it's still funny. It still stands up. Some of the jokes are a little dated, but still works. And again, you have all these terrible disaster films, and this is just one of those. Don't call me Shirley. All right, my second one, of course, comes from the minds of Ivan Reitman and Harold Ramis.
Hey, human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Bill Murray from Ghostbusters. The scene, of course, is built up off of just these terrible things that are going to happen, and Bill Murray just delivering the punchline in the whole thing to the mayor. Again, I have to believe that some of that is Bill Murray's knack for just deadpan improv, but others is just again whip smart dialogue coming from the mind of Harold Ramis, Dan Aykroyd. Basically, guys who could really, with the right cast, deliver you a really perfect movie setup, a really clear delivery, and just excellent dialogue. Because I mean, you have to love Peter Venkman. You have to love Bill Murray's delivery of those lines. I really am intrigued to see what happens with this new Ghostbusters movie when they bring him back.
Yes.
They're going to see how far of a tether they're going to give him. My last one, I'm going to try and keep the dialogue in it short, but it's going to take a second. So,
what? Just you're funny. You mean? So let me understand this, because maybe it's me. I'm a little. Maybe. But I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown. I amuse you. I make you laugh. I'm here to can amuse you. What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny?
Just
you know how you tell a story. What? No, I don't know. You said it. How do I know? You said I'm funny. How the f am I funny? What the f is so funny about me? Tell me. Tell me what's funny. Get the fuck out of here. I almost had him.
You cannot deny that, like I said, Scorsese's gangster dialogue is perfect, and the tension in that scene with Joe Pesci and Ray Liotta, because of the nature of Joe Pesci's character in that film, after he's delivered this story of just quick smart dialogue, again, when you have that moment of what's not there, it's the less is more type of thing, and like I said, that moment of silence between the two, when you feel that tension just about to build, it's like, he gonna go off and kill him. It's unpredictable, but it's when he delivers that "I gotcha." It's perfect, and again, that speaks to Scorsese. That speaks to Scorsese's ability to deliver great dialogue on film. Especially with these, two characters, and especially with this particular character, because he's so explosive. You never know what he's going to do next. That's what sets that up perfectly.
Yes, so tense, so well acted. Because if he would have sped up on his line, like Ray Liotta. Yeah, if he'd have sped up on his line there, if he didn't hold that tension of disbelief as to whether he thought he was being pranked or not, that doesn't work, even though it's funny, right?
Right.
But the way he held that pregnant pause of like
right
disbelief before he breaks down and goes, "Oh, get that out of here!" Right. So I have
go
three.
Get your shine box.
And then you really
So I have three, and again, I'll just say this is extremely difficult for me to try to pick because there's so many movies that I love. But we'll start at number 3 for me. It's a movie in 2008, a Christopher Nolan movie with a particular character. Play that for me, sir.
What did I miss? Hang on.
Is this Memento?
Hang on. Sorry, let me call it up here real quick. Sorry, my bad.
You're good. So in this movie, and this is a movie we all love, it's one of the best superhero movies ever.
I think it's the
because
best.
it doesn't play like a superhero movie. It just plays like a regular movie that happens to be a superhero movie or have a superhero in it. And I'm talking about The Dark Knight. And so when you talk about quotables, almost every scene that Heath Ledger is in is practically quotable. So that's why this was a struggle for me to try to pick just one from this guy, because there's so much good stuff in here.
There it is.
So
If you're good at something, never do it for free.
that's right.
If you're good at something, never do it for free.
That's right. So the scene is the Joker's showing up for the first time in front of the big organized crime bosses from all the different groups that are just out there to just destroy and create mayhem and extort folks in the city and all that. And he just walks in, a guy with the green jacket on with just a slight little ha, 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 ha. I mean, even that is perfect. And so in there, as they start talking about it, he reveals his plan of what they could possibly do. And then the mob bosses get a little angry and like, who is this guy? And they're kind of like, well, if you know so much about the Batman, how come you haven't taken him down? And then that's the scene right there. That's the line. The line is, well, because if you're good at something, you should never do it for free. And it's like, wow. I mean, and again, you could put that in corporate boardrooms everywhere, because that also makes a lot of sense. And so just the menace and how he says this, and just many things that he says in this film. But so it was tough just to pick just that one.
Yeah, it's an amazing setup for Heath Ledger too, just in the way that he delivers that dialogue as the Joker. Just when that introductory scene is really perfect for that interpretation of the character, because it's a character that we all know, but in this movie, that sets it up perfectly.
Yes, it does.
I'm gonna make this pencil disappear.
Yes, I mean, just too many things that he says in there. And
just the way he says, hello, beautiful. Oh, my God. You know how I get these scars?
And, you know, and as a kind of an honorable mention before I go to the second one real quick, is when you think about the line also where actually that they gave to Aaron Eckhart as Two-Face, when he says, you either die a hero or live long enough to become the villain. That's a brilliant line. And that's also in this movie. So again, you can see how this was very difficult. Let's get to number two. So my number two favorite movie quote, I went with something funnier and lighthearted since my first one's kind of serious. A 1993 movie called The Sandlot.
You're killing me, Smalls.
You're killing me, Smalls. Now, we've seen this on T-shirts. We've seen this on bumper stickers. Because who hasn't been in that situation where somebody's over-explaining something or just not getting what you're saying? In this case, they're talking about s'mores. And you're just like, you're killing me, Smalls. Or what was it, Vinnie Barbarino back in the day on Welcome Back, Kotter? I'm dying over here. Right? So, yeah, so you're killing me, Smalls. And so we've all said it. We've all sat down and someone just did something and we're kind of going, well, I guess today we say, seriously?
You didn't know this?
No, we're saying you're killing me, Smalls.
Yeah, exactly.
Because for us who grew up on that film, it really kind of is one of those generational things. Because again, we all know that kid. We all wanted to be as smart as that kid.
And he got it. Ham Porter. He was a character ahead of his time. And poor Scotty Smalls, he just didn't know the world very well, did he? And now I guess my number one, kind of a little spoiler, not really a spoiler alert, but we talked about it earlier in Empire Strikes Back. Again, that wise figure, 900 years old. Here's Yoda.
All right, I'll give it a try.
No, try not. Do or do not. There is no try.
Yes. And again, a situation where you can say this at any time to anyone who's basically kind of punking out, don't want to do it, they're complaining, they're whining, and it's
millennials.
To pull out and just say, hey, man, either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it, right? And so you love it that Yoda tells him, no, do or do not. There is no try. And again, you can put that on T-shirts, bumpers, bumper stickers, and you'll see it in corporate boardrooms too. And I think the whole point here, and Yoda though, if you wanted to get into it, says so many great lines. The moment that he ends up meeting Mark, right? He says, I was expecting to meet a great warrior. Wars do not make one great. I mean, Yoda was just saying a ton of just stuff. So if you thought that this was just child's fare, kiddie stuff, I could push back a little bit and say, hey, some of this stuff here, there's adults who resonate with this completely. So that would be that. So what did you think? I'm sure you have some favorite movies. You have some favorite quotes. Put it in the comments below. Let us know. Reach out to us, and then that's what we'll do. We'll reach out to you as well, and we'll say, hey, we appreciate that. We love that. That's also a great quote, and why didn't we think of that as well? Mm-hmm. So with this last few moments of our time, what we're going to do is jump into shout-outs, and we'll start with the Film Samurai.
All right, just shouting out to my son Matt and Nicole, in lockdown there in the Austin area. Friend that we got to hang out with last weekend, Aurora Wild, great singer. She's moving out to California. So wish her the best out there. My cousins, Joelle and Stella out in California, and all my Twitter pals that I interact with and give me great movie recommendations. Love those guys.
Love it. How about you, K-Zach?
Let's see. Let me go ahead and shout out first, of course, to our counterparts who work first and third Sundays on here. That's Eddie Medina and Cole Houston, the hosts of the Rantcore Pit and also Figments, the Unexplained Mysteries podcast, which should be coming back to you here on DallasOnAir.com, and of course Isle of Toys, our toy collecting show. Like I said, we do love Cole and Eddie, who have been supporters of us for so long as individuals, and like I said, we're glad to have them here on DallasOnAir.com. And of course, we do want to send our shout outs to Jansen and Kat, the owners of Dallas on Air, who give us a home here every Sunday, Talking Nerdy to Me Sundays, and of course everyone here on DallasOnAir.com, all the great shows which you should be tuning in to. If you dig sports, if you dig music, if you dig anything, do check out, of course, all the other shows on DallasOnAir.com, which is our home here every second and fourth Sunday.
That's awesome. And so I want to give my shout outs to Sean Presley, Michael Paul, Lauren Wiedauer, Tristan Frazier, Harry Thomas, Troy Ross, Daniel Meza, who's a great friend of ours, Mad Mel, and Scott Laney and Sandra. So do you want to shout out? Well, contact us, reach out, let us know how you're enjoying the show. If you got some critiques, that's fine too. But let us know, and if you can do that, then we can make sure that you get a shout out. But until then, this is the end of our show for this time, and we'll see you in July, right? The second and fourth Sundays in July. We'll see you then.
All right. Sayonara. Wear your masks.
Wash your hands.
Clean your nose. Don't touch your face.
Change your underwear.
Wash your damn hands.
Get your wax out.